Chapter 93. I could feel Trigon's wrath at our abrupt leaving of the auction house through my Unfettered Traveler essence that allowed me to bypass the auction house's wards with some effort. But even as Trigon's energy warped the auction house with its fell effects, I could feel a rising hungry void rise up to meet and push Trigon's energy aside. Thus, I knew Lord Glory was flipping his shit and probably fighting Trigon right now, so I got myself and the Einzbern girls the hell out of the way. As much as I would like to dog-pile Trigon while he was busy with Lord Glory, doing such a thing was for the weak and would if anything lower other beings' respect for me. Even if I cared little for the actual respect people had for me, I still wanted to be allowed into auctions and other places of high repute. "That demon was super scary," Ilya said as she held onto my hand shuddering, but at her words, I took a quick glance at Azazyel as she was obviously the one with the weakest mental fortitude after being stuck with Einzbern for more than a decade. And yup, she was in shock, with her eyes being dull and practically lying limp in my arms as I pulled the homunculi through the Fey realms. Thankfully Ilya couldn't see her mother, or she would be freaking the hell out, so I just tried to keep the girls busy as I directed us back to our realm by pointing out the eldritch and beautiful sights on either side of the path I created with my ability. "Jake, are you and that demon enemies or something?" Ilya asked me softly, and I shrugged with a wry smile. "Well, as we both said, I did in fact kidnap and despoiled his daughter after I seduced her into being my significant other," I said honestly, and Ilya blushed at my rendition that seemed to be out of a saucy old tale of some rouge stealing away a princess and sweeping her off her feet. Better for her to not know our romance started and ended when I choked Raven out like a bitch and then mating pressed her into making a baby within a month of knowing one another. Finally, though we arrived back at Hugo Mundo with the girls being dropped off except for Azazyel, as I needed to know if she had some kind of magical damage to her beyond how ragged her soul was after being an evil god's chew toy for a decade. "Ilya, you girls get settled in, I need to check your mother for some stuff, and honestly, I bet you would like some nicer, more modest clothes, wouldn't you?" I asked Riley as the three girls' larger breasts left a lot of cleavage exposed except for Sella, but she frankly had a sculpted heart-shaped ass to die for. Ilya, just now seeing her mother that was plastered to my side, was only dully staring ahead after Trigon's energy pressed down on her mind, obviously frowned at seeing her mother's state and went to obviously refuse my request and offer, but her refusal was met with purple lightning as both her collar and womb tattoo sparked to life. "Yes, master," she said forlornly looking down, but I sighed and brushed a hand over her soft white hair as I changed my mind. "Whatever. Never mind, just follow me. You two however can go on, I don't want Raven crowded," as she checks Azazyel, I said to Sella and Lacerit, who bowed in obeisance, not questioning my order, and just turned to check into one of the rooms I pointed out for them to take. I then took Ilya and Azazyel to Raven to see what kind of damage Azazyel had, and with Raven being a true empath, she could tell me how much of a shattered mess of a person Azazyel was. Along with maybe checking the seals Ilya and the rest had across their bodies if she could see past whatever protections Hera put into them. Jake, do you actually want us to change out of these maid outfits?" Ilya asked kind of embarrassedly, and I threw her a look of confusion as honestly disregarding the super thin white pantyhose they were wearing on their legs. Their skirt was super short and more of their chest was barred than actually covered, except for Sella, who had an even shorter skirt to put more focus on her backside due to her almost flat chest. "I mean, I like, and we Einzberns are made to endure the cold, so it's nice to wear something a bit breezy, you know," she continued, and I deadpanned as I recalled how fate was an eroge universe at its core and thus perverted antic was the norm, so I just shrugged. "Go ahead and do what you want, but I won't be held liable for ogling you in return," I said shamelessly, making Ilya squeak in embarrassment before with a loud knocking noise I knocked on Raven's room. "Come in." Raven's voice came through the door, and I opened the door and led the two homunculi girls into the room, with Raven raising an eyebrow and seeing the white-haired red-eyed girls carefully walk into the room. "And so, the ravenous lord strikes again. Did he steal you away from your family and promise to give you a nicer home?" Raven asked dryly, and I could feel she wasn't even feeling jealous or any negative emotions. She could see how the girls looked between me and Raven, looking at me for guidance, so she only saw them as lost puppies with their light hair and eyes looking around in confusion. Ilya froze at Raven's question, and I guess Azazyel's mind had come back out of her turtle shell as she spoke softly, and her response made Raven's eye twitch and she sent me a look that clearly was yelling. "These are your problems to explain to Galatea. Yes, he bought our freedom, so we shall repay his protection and kindness with our servitude for however long he desires our service. Yeah, Raven just looked at me like I was crazy, so I just shrugged. They are all homunculi, and this one in particular has had a bad experience while being held in a prison cell with an evil god for a decade to be messed with. I said, plopping my hand onto Irisveel's head as I continue to speak. And their typical homunculi body issues have been fixed by Hera, with them all being bound up with some magical seals that force them to be obedient to me, so I need you to use your magical expertise to check it out. I finished. Fine. You, the short busty one, come here and let me check you first so I can get a standard for your forms without that one's mangled soul fucking with my measurements. Raven said bluntly as shadow tendrils picked up Ilya, making her squeak in surprise as she was manhandled and all but tossed onto Raven's bed, but not before Ilya managed to say something weird. No. Not the shadow tentacles again. She cried, blushing at how her form was bound in by shadowy ropes, so I just spun on my heel and walked out of the room with a bland straight face.